All right, got it. All right. So good. So welcome to tonight's hearing on education for human services funding. Thank you for being here. As a public meeting, it is recorded and will be available on YouTube. I'm going to very quickly introduce our board members and staff, and then give you a quick second to introduce yourself. And then, because you're going to be speaking on two programs tonight, you have a little bit more time.
Okay.
We're going to give the board 15 minutes for Q&A on those programs, and then I'll give you your 5 minutes at the end to share whatever you need to share. Okay. So let me introduce. I'm gonna go from my right and left for my board members. So I'll start with Deanna, and just give your name and how long you've been on the board.
Hi, I'm Deanna Blair. I've been on the board 4 years now.
I think we met last year. Nice to meet you
Probably
again.
nice to see you again. Yes.
Graham.
Name's Graham. I'm at the end of my second term on the board.
Alejandro.
Alejandro Prieto, this is my first year on it.
Crystal.
Hi, my name is Crystal Prieto. I am first year on the board. Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Christina doesn't sound really well. She's not feeling well tonight, but she is here.
Hi, Perla.
Oh, geez.
You know me. Well, yeah, you know my voice very, very well. I have the flu, so I'm going to be doing a lot of listening. Eliberto has some of my questions, but ahead of time. If I have anything to add, I'll just get back online. So I'm listening though. Thanks.
You feel better soon.
And you don't see her, but our magician in the background who schedules these meetings and confirms with you all is Brenda Palacio, and she is helping manage this meeting tonight. So why don't you introduce yourself, and then I'll start the 15 minutes for questions from the board.
Of course. Yeah. I'm Dr. Perla Delgado, and I'm the executive director of the I Have a Dream Foundation. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start the timer. So you have 15 minutes. Start with questions from the board and or staff. Alejandro.
Thank you for being here. I really am proud of the work you all do over there. My daughter Chickseed is part of the I Have a Dream. And it was great to see the presence of some of the counselors and children over at the LAD function that we had this last year, the Latin Advocacy Day.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool to
Awesome.
get those stories in for our representatives. My question is, what are your outreach efforts? And if you can just explain the day-to-day outreach.
In regards to the work that we do with either program, or are you specifically asking about AFP?
I guess my is more your recruitment of how do you get the children involved.
Okay, so it's not I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that when we launch a class, that's really when we start the recruitment process. So for example, we currently launched our new Longmont class this past August. And a lot of the efforts that we do is connect with community leaders, connect with campus leaders to identify students that might benefit from this additional support. And then once the class is built, if you will, we usually have about 45 slots. The recruitment period is kind of done, and we shift over to retaining our students and working with the families and partnering with the campus community and the parents and the students around building programming that meets their needs and meets them where they're at, while always keeping in mind that our focus areas are academics and social and emotional learning. So the recruitment starts at the beginning, and then throughout the 10+ years that the students are with us, it's really about retention. And again, honing in on what are the strengths of the students and building our curriculum around it. What are some of the challenges that they're experiencing, and bringing in trainers or bringing in extra support to help them if they are experiencing academic gaps or falling behind academically. So it's really a holistic approach, but as you know, our partnership lasts anywhere between 10 to 13 years with the Dreamer Scholar. So throughout that span, it's really about retention. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Crystal.
Hope you're on mute.
You're on mute, Crystal. Or you're getting
Okay.
your phone. Okay.
Yep,
Yeah,
I'm on two different
Oh.
devices here, so sorry if this is a little confusing.
that's all right.
Okay, so for one, I just wanted to really compliment your DEI efforts. I think it's really cool how you guys get together and talk about different articles and you know, podcasts or whatever it is that you guys send out and that you discuss them in your meetings. I think it's your monthly meetings.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to compliment you on that because not
you.
a lot of organizations find the time to do that. One question I have for you is in the application you spoke about certain feedback loops
Mhm.
and how you take maybe parent or student feedback and then you turn it around and potentially make some changes regarding what the feedback was. So I was going to ask you if you could give an example of maybe, you know, some feedback you were given from the parents or the students and how you guys made adjustments to your program in regards to that feedback.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the most recent example is really our Advancing Families program. So we have a parent advisory committee that is comprised of about 8 to 10 parents across the county. And they did an evaluation with the parent community, those who they could connect with, and identified what we can do better in regards to parent engagement, parent involvement, and parent support. And so a lot of the initiatives that we have implemented for the parents/adult learners has been driven by informal and formal feedback loops. And really, we've honed in on some key programming that isn't already available in the community. And so, for example, our Advancing Families program was created in collaboration with our parent advisory. They saw a big need I would say post-pandemic, but it really was at the start of the pandemic that a lot of the parents within our parent community were experiencing technology gaps. And many of our parents during the pandemic, the first couple of years, were frontline staff. So they were still working, they were still out in the fields and doing what they were doing, and realizing that the technology that their students were utilizing was outside of their purview. So we partnered with another nonprofit to offer computer literacy classes, and that has been a hit. And then we also kind of branched out to providing our parents social and emotional support. So as a result of the pandemic, many of our students have experienced a lot of mental health challenges and consequences of the pandemic, and have experienced a lot of social and emotional I think crises, if you will. And a lot of what we heard from the parents, and in particular the parent advisory, was how do we arm our parents and guardians and the adults in the lives of Dreamer Scholars with the tools and strategies. And we're not asking to be mental health providers or therapists, but we need tools to help us support our students. And so we created a social and emotional workshop series in collaboration with some experts in the community, and have implemented those, and they have been super successful, and parents have continued to ask for more. And then another program that we implemented was our 2-gen model, and providing our adult learners, the adults, caregivers, and guardians of the Dreamer Scholars with pathways to post-secondary attainment. And then what we learned from there with a lot of the feedback from our initial pilot was actually that the parents that were enrolling in our 2-gen model were actually asking for ESL classes. And so we were so committed to like, we're going to enroll you in post-secondary pathways. But what we needed to realize was that many of the parents actually needed that academic ESL base that they didn't have. And so we partnered with Front Range Community College, and we've been offering a college-based ESL course to our adult learners, and that has been super successful. So I'll stop talking because I can continue to talk about just a lot of the work that's been driven by the Dreamer scholars and their families and how it has allowed us to evolve as an agency working for and with community members. But I hope that answers your question in a
It
nutshell.
absolutely does. Thank you so much. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
So Graham, then Alejandro, and then I will ask Christina's questions.
Okay, thank you for being here and all the work that you do. My question is around advancing families and some of the outcome metrics, and it looks like you're hoping to achieve 65% of adult learners would achieve employment or wage increase. And so I guess I have two questions around that data point. One is, historically, is that just like an average, or are you looking at increasing that percentage over last year? And two, the second part is, you know, that other 35%, like, is there a reason you can identify that they don't achieve employment or increase wages?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the 60% is an increase from what we've seen this past year, when it was actually a year and a half ago when we piloted our AFP program. And so we've seen a lot of positive response from parents wanting to access our advancing families. Unfortunately, we have a very limited slot. And so that's, I think, the challenge that we face. And so we would love to see an increase because, as I mentioned earlier to Crystal's question, we were really ambitious in enrolling parents in post-secondary pathways, and we needed to take a step back because we realized that ESL was a request and a need that our parents needed support in. And so we've adjusted our stats, and the remaining percentage is really parents who are like, I'm good where I'm at. What I want to do is advance my skills, or I'd like to get a certificate because it helps me actually retain my job. And so we've been shifting on how to best report on that, because they're still enrolled and they're completing either an ESL certificate or a post-secondary certificate, but it doesn't at the moment necessarily mean that they're getting a promotion. I think in the future, there's the hope, right? But we've had to adjust how we report on that particular data set. Does that answer your question?
That helps a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alejandro?
When it comes to that program right there that you just finished describing, are parents required to be documented, or do you also serve undocumented?
So we don't ask that question.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I'm going to
Great
leave it
answer.
at that. We do not ask that question. We don't track it, and we don't ask it, and we don't track it. So any parent who is interested can participate, so long as, I do want to add, so long as they make the commitment, because being an adult learner and managing all of those pieces in a parent's life is often difficult. And so going back to Graham's question, we want to make sure that they're committed to the program so we can see success. But that's usually a conversation through case management and support to make sure that they have the bandwidth to do an ESL class or enroll in a post-secondary pathway.
Awesome. So Pela, I'm going to ask Christina's questions, and we have about 3 minutes left, a little bit less than 3 minutes left. So one of the questions that Christina had was about, I Have a Dream has received, and again, this was before you finished the application, right? Or after you got it after you had applied, but I Have a Dream received funding from the Metro District.
Oh, the Bronco
you know,
money.
yeah, Bronco money. And my understanding is you're also going to be receiving city council contingent funds as well.
Yeah.
And so I guess the question and the concern
Mhm.
is the duplication of funding, right? Basically the concern is the double dipping. And so wanted to make sure that we put that out there. And then my question is and this is a question I ask a lot of folks, right? Because I really enjoy reading the beginning of the application. That first question, that's my favorite question. And you had some great programmatic strategic goals, and I'd love to hear, do you have any agency level around sustainability or development, any goals that you want to share at that level as well?
Can you clarify that question? Sorry, I'm
So
not
so
sure.
when I read your application, a lot of the strategic goals that you laid out
Yeah.
really focus on your work,
Yeah.
and what I always ask agencies, do you have any goals that are focused on your organization? How you're going to strengthen your fundraising, or
Yeah,
so that.
definitely. Yeah, thank you. That helps. Yeah, a lot of, so our strategic plan, we just completed it last fall. We're entering our first full year of our new strategic plan. And a lot of it is focused on sustainability. We've been around for 33 years. And so how do we continue? And that's a conflicted question for me, to be honest with you, because if students weren't experiencing educational inequities, we wouldn't have to exist. So if the system improves, we don't have to be here. Unfortunately, right, we're still here and we want to continue to be here. And so for us, it's what are some of the pieces that really strengthen our mission and the work that we do, and what is our lane? And so we've been honing in on our lane and honing in on the fact that our strength is in the after school program. We have a couple of programs in the St. Vrain Valley that allow us to be in the classroom, but that really changes based on the campus administration. And so we are granted, again, that opportunity, but our strength is in the out of school time. And we also don't want to be an extension of school for a lot of our students. And so we've looked at how do we continue the momentum? How do we continue to be innovative in our programming? And how do we continue to really, again, move the needle forward in the work that we're doing? And so a lot of our strategic goals at the board level is to find a sustainable funding, increase our what we call our donor scholar sponsors. And so ensuring that we have the continued support financially from people in the community that will help us award our Dreamer Scholars the $10,000 scholarship. And so we're looking to expand that, and we've been revising our donor commitment. In the past, it had been a commitment of 10 years. And we know that that's been difficult to retain donors on a 10-year pledge. And so we've reduced it to 5 years, which means we have to increase the number of donors. And so we're really looking at, again, funding that is sustainable for our initiatives, and funding that aligns with the work that we're doing. We don't want to chase the funding, and we don't want to adjust our programming based on a funding source, but we want to find some funding that aligns with the work that we're doing in the out-of-school space. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't sure if Christina had a question around kind of the double dipping.
Yeah, that was, I'm asking it for her.
Yeah, I just basically my question was how is this application for funding? Is it going to fund the same thing or something different with the Bronco funds and the council contingency funds? Basically,
Yeah.
is it going to be the same in part or something different?
Of course, the Bronco funding only funds the Dreamer Scholar programming.
Okay.
And then the contingency funds, I haven't heard an amount, so I'm not sure, but we did include support for our parent programming. And as I had mentioned earlier to Crystal, a lot of the parent programming has been expanded this past a year and a half because of the work. And so we're trying to find funding that can allow us to expand and sustain the work that we're doing within the parent/adult ed community that we serve and work for. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does.
Okay, perfect. I know
So-
I'm close. I think I went over a minute, so.
Yeah, that's all right. So I'm gonna give you your 5 minutes if you want to
Okay.
share anything. And again, you don't have to use them all, but I'm gonna start the timer and you
Mhm.
can share whatever you want with us.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've read our application, and I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to present our work in a very personable way, even though it's on Zoom. But I always love to talk about the work that we're doing and the impact. Our goal is to continue growing our reach in the city of Longmont. As I mentioned, we launched a class this year, first graders, and we updated our curriculum. So I would love to invite you all to observe what's happening. And we're really honing in on the academic piece and the social and emotional piece. Our goal is to recruit a new class of Dreamer Scholars in 2.5 years. So we can continue to build on the work that has been successful in the St. Vrain Valley for the past 20 years. And I really look to the support of the city and individual donors to help us continue doing what we're doing, as well as continue funding our scholarship, which is such a pivotal piece of the work that we do, because we know that the cost of post-secondary education continues to increase. And our $10,000 that are awarded to each of the scholars is a small drop in a bucket of costs that they're going to have to incur. But we also know that the more educational attainment our Dreamer Scholars achieve, the more successful they're going to be, and the faster we're able to eliminate the cycle of poverty for many of the families that are experiencing income inequality. And so just wanted to share that with you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
For the opportunity.
Thank you for the work that you do and have a great night.
Thanks, you too. Good
All
luck.
right.
you.
Your evening. Bye.
Bye. All right, so we are a little behind, about 7 minutes, which is not, it happens. So our next is also has two, but they're this is a little different because it's their basic needs and we just don't want to have to come back 2 nights, and so that's why Brenda assigned you. It's not education, but she assigned you both the education and the basic needs, because we just don't want to make agencies come back twice. So, when it's an all education, it's pretty straightforward, but when it's two, did we lose Mark?
We lost Mark, but he'll probably come right back on.
Okay. And then one of the other agencies wants to sit in. It's a public meeting. They totally can. They just can't. We need to make sure they can't speak. And so we'll let them know that when we let them in. So why don't you let them in? And I'll explain that, Brenda.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening. We'll make sure that everybody can hear us. Barbara, you are welcome to come and listen. This is a public hearing. Thank you for waiting for the next group to speak. It would have been a little bit awkward to bring you right in the middle of someone's piece, but yes, you are welcome to listen. And you're not allowed to speak during the presentation. And like I said, this is a public meeting, so it is being recorded. So Mark, I'm gonna really quickly introduce our board, because as usual with these meetings, we are running behind. This is pretty common for us. We get into some great conversations. And tonight we're gonna ask you, I was telling the board, typically we try and keep the categories together, but the Art Center is in a very unique position that you both have. You have an education application and you have a self-sufficiency application. And so we're going to ask you about both tonight, and that way we don't make you come back for the self-sufficiency one, right? So we don't like to we don't want to make you guys come back. So I'm going to introduce the board real quick. I'm just going to give you your name and how long they've been on the board, and I'll go to the staff. And then we will give you 15 minutes for Q&A. And I'm going to start this time on my left, and I'm going to start with Graham.
Hey, Mark, I'm Graham. I'm toward the end of my second term on the board. Nice to see you again.
You as well.
Awesome. Alejandro.
Hey, Graham, I'm Alejandro Prieto. This is my first year on the board.
Thank you. Crystal.
Hello,
Hey,
my name
Graham.
is Crystal Prieto. This is my first year on the board. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Deanna.
Hello, my name is Deanna Blair. This is my 4th year on the board, and it's nice to see you again.
Awesome. Christina's online, but she doesn't feel great. She might pop up real quick, say hello.
Hi, Mark. I'm a bit under the weather, so I have my camera off. But we know each other well.
Yes, we do.
And you can't see her, but Brenda Palacio is our executive admin for Human Services, and she confirms everybody's going to be here and schedules and all that stuff, and runs the behind the scenes. So we really appreciate all that she does. With that, I'll let you introduce yourself real quick, and then I'm going to start the timer.
Okay, sounds good. Well, pleasure to see some familiar faces from last year. It's good to see you all, and pleasure to meet the new members of the board as well. Thank you all for your time serving on the board. My name is Mark Cowell. I'm the executive director for the Our Center and the Aspen Center, and I have been in this role for right about 4.5 years now.
Awesome. All right, starting it now. Alejandro, and then Graham.
Sorry about the name mix-up, Mark. Thank you so much for the work you do. I actually, to be honest, I've partaken in the services that our center has provided here in Longmont. So thank you so much for the staff kindness and great professionalism I experienced while I had to partake of that service. My question is one of diversity. I noticed that neither on your board or staff members, nobody identifies as LGBTQ plus. I just would like to know what are you doing to either diversify that section within the organization, or also how do you work with that community?
Sure. So we actually do. One board member does identify as a member of the LGBTQI committee or community. So I'm surprised we didn't have that on there. She's Sue Roach, who's been on our board for about a year and a half now. And we do have one staff member that I'm aware of also that is a member of that community. And you know, it's somewhat kind of difficult. I don't want to go and ask and be intrusive, on those fronts. I really want to, and that's one of the ones that's a little bit more difficult, right? I mean, if you're talking ethnicity and, we do a lot of work to make sure that we have bilingual, bicultural staff, and that's a little bit easier to, pick up on. But this one's a little bit more difficult. And to be honest with you, it's, we try to make sure that we're available, we're out and participating in as many community events as we can to show that we're there, we're supportive. We want to be a part of all members of the community. And at the same time, too, I want to be really careful not to be too intrusive, because sometimes I feel like, maybe they feel that's none of my business, and that's totally okay. So, oftentimes I find out after hiring, especially with members of that community, that they identify as such. And then again, it's a great, and it doesn't change anything. It's just something I know, but usually that comes out later just through conversation. So I don't know if that's necessarily a good answer, but it's kind of where we're at. It's we want to be active, we want to support, and we want to be really careful that we're not being too intrusive asking those kind of questions.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Graham, I think you were next.
Okay, I had a question about basic needs and the Aspen Kid development. The basic needs question is, your ask is 150K. That program does a lot: groceries, rental assistance, etc. Do you have, an intention for the 150K specifically?
So it will cover two things. It'll cover some of the increased costs of running our services. And then a lot of it will go towards direct financial assistance. We've been We were very fortunate during the pandemic that the community was extremely generous in supporting us. And during those couple years, we deployed some of that. But there was also a lot of funding coming through the city and the county with the ARPA dollars and other federal dollars. So we knew we were going to come to a time where we're at today, where those dollars are now evaporating, and we put a lot into reserves, and now we're deploying those quickly. And if we continue at the clip that we're dispersing those funds, we're going to exhaust what we put aside for direct financial assistance by July or August of next year. So this would help us continue to, we're just kind of looking at this on a month by month basis right now, until our community, something happens to slow down and stop this fire that's happening, this crisis. We're just trying to extend what we can do for the community another year or another month out and another month out. So a lot of these funds would help us move another month or two with that direct financial assistance.
Got it. And then my question for Aspen development is, as you mentioned, your hope to mentor 7 adults, that where they learn, the trade. Do you pay that person, or do you get funding from their educational institution for training them?
So typically we don't pay those individuals. It's part of their internship or what they need to successfully complete to receive their bachelor's degree or their master's degree. And we don't receive any funding from the institution that they're coming from. The benefit for us, and we've seen this a couple times now, is hopefully they fall in love with the school, they fall in love with the team, and we can hire them when they graduate. So, part of it is we want to help. I'm sure you're more than well aware, there's a major crisis when it comes to the workforce in the early childhood. And so this is a little way to hopefully continue to build that workforce up, but kind of a little bit of a, greedy side of it is we hope that after we, invest a semester in working with them, that when they graduate, they want to come work for us at the Aspen Center.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Crystal.
Alrighty, 2 questions. One regarding basic needs. So Mark, I've met you before. I'm a resource navigator at EFA, providing basic needs. So do similar work. I do understand a little bit about what you were saying as far as trying to meet the need in the community with limited funds and resources. And so can you talk about your efforts to reach out to other organizations, the county, other nonprofits, other governmental programs that could help fill in that gap? What are you folks doing over there to pursue other avenues for families that you serve?
Sure. And that's, as I'm sure you're aware, that's a kind of an evolving process as things around us, all the moving parts continue to shift. We did receive some funds through ARPA, through Boulder County HHS, and we projected those out through a majority of 2024 to help us out to build a little bit of a bridge. But we're out talking right now with everyone in the community. I know I've talked with Christina and Eliberto that we're looking to change how we do services just a little bit. Since the pandemic, we were very transactional, and what I mean by that is we were doing screenings and we were doing approvals, and then the county was cutting the checks, right? And so there wasn't a whole lot of family development work or work on goals that would hopefully result in long-term sustainability. And now that we've come out of the pandemic, it's very clear to us in our community that the needs are far more complex and far deeper than just a one-time assistance. Prior to the pandemic, I'd say 2/3 to 3/4 of everyone who come in, we could write a check and help them get across those troubled waters, build that bridge, and then they were off and on their way. And 25 to 30% required more of that long-term case management, a lot more resources and time invested. And now it's totally flipped 180. And it seems like 70-80% of everyone who comes in, if we really want to help them move towards self-sufficiency, we're going to have to invest a lot more time and a lot more resources. So, I've gone out and I've talked with key members of Boulder County HHS. I've talked with Eliberto and Christina. I'm talking with a lot of members of our community right now in regards to partnerships, because we've identified that childcare is a major issue, affordable housing is a major issue, and wages. A full-time job no longer ensures that you can put food on the table, keep the lights on, and a roof over your head. You can't do that in Boulder County anymore. So we've started talking with Front Range Community College and strengthening and deepening our partnership with them, with the chamber, with the LEPD, Longmont Economic Development Partnership. I can never get their name right. And we're trying to also leverage private businesses so we can, bring all these different partners to the table, because money's part of it and the Hour Center is part of it, but we're not all of it. So we need to bring all of us to the table. We need to leverage each of our strengths. I think that's how we're going to start making movement. So we're focusing, yes, on money. That's part of being a nonprofit, but we've got to bring a lot of those partnerships back and do it in a very strategic and intentional way. And that's what we're spending a lot of our time on right now, is just out in the community and talking with people. And people are like, yes, we get it. We understand. We want to be a part of it. So my fingers are crossed that we can get this to materialize next year and bring all these resources to the table in a coordinated fashion to help these families.
Thank you so much. And for time's sake, I'll skip my Aspen question. We'll go ahead and go to the
No,
next.
you can ask it. It's all right. We got time.
I'll shorten this answer.
Oh, no, you're fine. No, that was wonderful. And I do look forward to seeing any type of invitations in the future, Mark, for these meetings or these brainstorming sessions that you're talking about, that the Hour Center is wanting to do. As far as the Aspen Center goes, what is one main challenge that you folks have over there? Would you say it's just staffing, or?
Yeah, if I were just to say the first thing that came to mind, it's without a doubt staffing. Before the pandemic, the early childhood world, generally speaking, but the Aspen Center for sure, wages weren't really livable wages. The early childhood profession was poorly paid. And then the pandemic happened, and all the extra responsibilities that were put on teachers and teaching assistants and staff to keep children safe during the pandemic and still provide a quality early childhood atmosphere was extremely difficult. And we saw a lot of staff leave the profession altogether. One literally went to a local microbrewery to slang beer because she could make as much money and it was not nearly as stressful. Another one went to a local bank as a bank teller, again, could make the same amount of money, and it was a lot less stressful. And so the last 3 years, we've increased our wage structure from anywhere from 35 to 50%. So we've gone through some major increases in salaries because we knew that was one of the major barriers to people working in the field and coming to work at the Aspen Center. And despite that, it's still very difficult to find professionals. There's just not enough professionals for all the slots that are out there, or all the positions that are available in the community. Most every colleague I talk to, they have at least one classroom closed because they can't find staff. We have 2 of our 5 classrooms closed because we can't find staff. We have more than plenty of kids on a wait list, and I could open 20 classrooms tomorrow, but I can't find the staff to fill those positions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you might want to check out the St. Vrain Valley's advanced education programs, that they're actually training teachers and early educators or early childhood educators right out of high school to get their certificates. And that could be a wonderful internship opportunity for you guys.
I will look into that. Thank you for that lead.
Thank you, Crystal. So Mark, one real quick comment. Typically, this funding doesn't go for direct financial assistance. We should do that through the homelessness prevention side. However, what you asked for in your application, which is totally appropriate for, is program staff. And so I would suggest you keep the program staff, and that would free up other funds for your direct financial assistance.
Exactly. Yeah, that wouldn't be a problem at all.
Because that's what you asked for, and that's really what we want to fund is those programs.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, as the dominoes fall, it'll help on that front, but
exactly.
Yep, we can do that.
Yeah, it'll free up other funds.
Exactly.
I just had a couple of, I got more of a kudos than a question. I love when agencies read the application and answer the question. And you guys did a great job, and not just copy and paste, but actually read and answer. And I have a couple tonight that I want to give kudos to. and you're one of them because you read the questions and you gave us your strategic goals. I love the fact that you hit that 800,000 raising, and I'm just wondering what's next. What's the next goal, man? I mean, it's exciting to hear that, knowing that we're in difficult times. Are you all working on that next level? Now that you've hit that amazing goal of raising up to 800,000.
Yeah, so one, thank you for that feedback. I will certainly pass that on to Elaine and Ellen. It's always great to share positive feedback, so thank you for that. I think the next two big steps, if you will, for us is one at the Hour Center. I think it's this kind of new model. I mean, it's basically family development. It's what we should be doing as a family resource center. But I think it's taking it at a much bigger level. It's getting different community partners involved. Oftentimes we just think about coordinating with other safety net providers. We're talking about the possibility of working with UC Health. I know City of Longmont is showing some interest from an employer's side, of participating with Smuckers. So, I'm really excited to hopefully build a framework in Longmont and the St. Vrain Valley that, again, will do more than just be writing checks to pay for rent and utilities, that we're actually helping families achieve goals that, I hope I never have to see them again. And if I do, I'm hoping they're writing a check as a donation saying thank you because they're in a great spot now. So that's like our big goal. And that's going to take some fundraising and some talking to people, because again, we're talking about a lot more resources invested per family to support them as they work through these goals. And then for the Aspen Center, we're kicking around. We might have an opportunity coming up in the future where we may have the chance to purchase a different facility. If you've never been at the Aspen Center, it's like the old post office from like the 1920s. And it is truly not a conducive environment for a preschool. It wasn't built to be a preschool. My team has done an amazing job of making it a preschool, but it's old, it's running down. We're dealing with plumbing issues, et cetera, and we're kind of locked in at 5 classrooms. So our team has been talking about, and our board's been talking about, that if we can get back to a good place with staffing, we may look at growing that program, and the opportunity that we're potentially looking at could double the size of our preschool.
That's awesome. That's good to hear.
So it's kind of out on the horizon. There's a lot of things that have to fall in place, but it's something that we're taking very seriously as an option for the future.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing those strategic goals. I was excited because I read those and like, great, somebody actually answered the question. Our time is up. I'll give you 5 minutes if for anything you want to share. You don't have to use them all, but just wanted to give those to you.
Sure. I think, you all asked some great questions, and exactly kind of what I would hit upon. At the Aspen Center, the major obstacle is staffing right now, and it's a major issue across the board. I'm sure you'll probably hear that many times this evening. And we've been doing everything that we can, from recruiting to increasing wages to being creative and offering internships with the hopes that those students will come work with us when they graduate. So we just missed, we've been a 5-star rated school for several years, and we literally missed 5-star to 4-star by this much. And I thought that was incredible given the turnover in staff we've dealt with coming out of COVID. They're still providing an incredible service over there. So my goal and hope is now that I feel like we've stabilized, we're going to open up a 4th classroom in January, and then we hope to open up the 5th classroom by summer. And then hopefully that will allow us to talk about, do we want to grow with a new facility? And then at the Hour Center, it's just, I think a lot of people have felt like the crisis has gone away with the pandemic, but I also feel like people are starting to understand at the same time that the crisis is still here. As I was saying before, working a full-time job is no longer a guarantee that you can pay your rent and pay your utilities and pay for food. And we're seeing more seniors starting to come to our food bank, fixed incomes. So they're coming to us to get groceries because they can't afford the cost of everything going up. We're seeing a lot of families coming and visiting our pantry just as a strategy to save $200-300 a month that they can apply to their utilities or their rent, which is great. But we're seeing families now that just we may help them for 1 month and they're back 3 or 4 months later or 6 months later because they're so deep into it. So this is part of the strategy. We've heard, we've seen where the community struggles are, and we're trying to now adjust our services to match the community need the best that we can. So it's tough times, but my team is amazing and they're incredible and they're grinding and they're trying to be creative. And I have full confidence. We didn't know what the heck the pandemic was when we got into it, and I think we shined through that time, and we're at one of those points again. And I'm confident that the team's going to be creative, and by the end of this, we're going to shine again. But right now, it's just kind of like, how are we going to get there? But I'm confident we're going to get there. So.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark, for your time. Thank you for all that you do. We appreciate the work of the Art Center and the Aspen Center. So have a good rest of your evening.
Thanks. And you guys too. And thank you for your time serving on this committee. Appreciate it. All right. Take care.
All right. And actually, our next agency is already here because she was listening in on that. Barb, welcome. I'm not going to go over. I think you heard you were there for the introduction of the board members. So we're gonna go right ahead. You only because you're only doing one program, you're only gonna get 10 minutes, where Mark was doing 2 tonight, so he got 15. And so I'm gonna set up the timer and I'll let you, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to us, and then I'll start the timer.
So what do you want me to do?
Introduce yourself to the board. You heard them. Why don't you introduce yourself to the board?
Okay. Hello, everybody. It's nice to have this opportunity to represent Open Door. My name is Barbara Ulrich, and I'm the director of Open Door. Open Door has 2 parts. It has the academic English second language program, and then it also has the HiSET, which is high school equivalency or GED. And our HiSET program also has classes for Spanish and then classes for English.
So Barb, I'm gonna stop you there. You can get into that in your own 5 minutes when you have them. Because I want to now turn it over to the board to see what questions they may have of you. All right, so I'm going to start the 10-minute timer. Anybody want to go first? Deanna.
Hi. I noticed you talked about volunteers and using their services for teaching. Could you just talk a little bit about how you recruit those volunteers?
Well, our teachers are not volunteers, they're paid.
Oh,
Yeah, our teachers are paid staff, and it's really interesting. They come to me. They hear about our program from various sources, and they come to me saying they are interested. When a teacher does come to us, though, since we are different, we're academic, we have them observe classes first to see if this is a good fit for them. And some of them, it's not a good fit, so we refer them to a life skills program. But for those that it is a good fit, they go through training and then they become a paid staff member.
Sorry, I'm not sure where I got that volunteer thing from. I had it in my notes, so sorry.
It's all right. Graham.
Hey, Barbara, thanks for your work. My question is concerning outcomes. It looks like you have some meaningful outcomes. I'm just not sure where and how you measure those. So somebody graduates, they get a GED or an ESE or et cetera. Like, do you follow up and survey and track their outcomes and success?
So let me confirm, you're asking for our outcomes, how we measure our outcomes?
Yes.
Okay, very good question. And before I tell you how we measure, I will say that we have just recently purchased a database program so that we can even measure more efficiently and more details. But the way that we presently do it is the outcomes are how many of our students completed the high set so that they did get their diploma. That's how we measure that aspect. Then the English portion, it's all through survey of the students, word of mouth. How are you doing? Did you reach your goals? That sort of thing. But that's been really difficult to get concrete data from those students. So we want to take the next step in getting a more sophisticated database, which, like I said, we just purchased it and we hope to have that in place by January.
Awesome, thank you.
Crystal.
Hello. So my question for you is, what sets your high school equivalency program aside from other programs in the community, such as Front Range, Workforce Boulder County, and other alternative options?
And that's also a good question. I am really excited because this last year, a lot of our community partners came together to talk to each other because there's not enough resources out there. And Workforce is one of them. Front Range does not have GED classes. And so some of the people that came together was the Workforce Learning Source program and Boulder Library. And I will say that I am happy to announce that a couple of our community partners asked if we would start training their staff starting in January because we have had great returns on our staff and our program in reaching the objective. So now we're opening our training sessions to other programs in the community to come and get trained through us. And in this forum of meeting the other programs, we talk about what we have and what we don't have and our challenges. And it's across the board. Most of them say they are short on staff. But the training aspect, they were most impressed by the training aspect that we had of our instructors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alejandro.
Yeah, just to back that statement up, I have heard from the Boulder Library staff that the Open Door program, GED program, is primo. Like, you stay the course, and the people actually, the instructions are there, the instructors are there, and you finish the course with the people, which is it's a huge difference from their program. So yeah, I could totally see, and I could attest to what you're saying.
Thank you. I actually met with Juan and Karen yesterday, and that's how they came to me asking if some of their staff could come to our training. And whenever we meet with these community partners, one thing that we all say is that we can't do everything. So what do? Let's do what we do well and have high quality, and then know where to resource out to other programs. And one of the things with Boulder Library is their literacy program. And I'm really happy to see that they're going to try to stick with that and really develop that because there's a high need for that. But that's not what we do.
Thank you, Barbara. So my question, and I ask this question a lot, the board hears it from me for a lot. First of all, thank you. You were also one of the other agents I was going to give kudos for. You actually read the question and answered it. However, when I read your strategic goals on that question one, they're wonderful programmatic goals. But last time when I did the site visit and we had the conversations, there's a lot of work to be done around the infrastructure of Open Door, right? Around the organizational structure. And I guess the question that I have for you to think about, even if you can't answer tonight, is what are some strategic goals have you all talked about as an advisory board on how do you continue to develop the organizational structure to take Open Door from a wonderful grassroots organization that it is to a more professional nonprofit where we want it to be, right? That's more sustainable, that is really set for the future, right? As you think about the future of Open Door, right now, the future of Open Door is Barbara Ulrich. How do we make it be Open Door sustainable? I guess that's the question, is if you thought about those type of strategic goals?
First of all, thank you for that compliment, but I have to disagree. Open Door is not Barbara. I have 7 staff that have been there for more than 5 years. And our curriculum that we designed and put together, it wasn't me alone. It was all of us coming together. We do a lot of collaboration. We do team teaching and that sort of thing. And there has been a situation where I was absent for 6 months due to a medical situation, and they held down the fort. So it's not just Barbara. There's a lot there. And what I would really like to do is to have more of this partnering with community organizations on many levels. And so this training and helping one another and training, I think that's the first step. But also knowing our resources in the community and being able to help each other and knowing where to refer students that come through if we're not able to help them. But on something that is our goal that we're looking towards is we do work very closely with St. Vrain School District. And I see these dropout students and they're really sharp and they have a lot of opportunity, or being an educator, it breaks my heart that they're just stopping. So we want to keep them engaged. So what we found that in our computer classes, most of our students are older and they just lack digital literacy. So we offered these students to come help these older students and work with them, volunteer. If you do 18 hours of volunteer work and then you enroll either in a trade school or a college, we'll give you a free laptop. And we have 3 students that took up that opportunity. And so we sent out to a couple of high schools that we were going to start doing this. And we sent it out to the computer instructors at the school. So we just want to have more connection with the high schools, especially for the students that are dropping out, and letting them know that there are other options and we want to keep them engaged. So whatever we can do to keep them engaged. And so that's our newest and latest project that we're working on.
Good, thank you. So we have about 20 seconds left if anybody else has another question. If not, we'll just give time to Barbara for her to share whatever she wants to share.
I have a comment. Barbara, so I'm actually doing an internship with St. Vrain Valley Student Services, and we're kind of that resource or that point of contact for students who are struggling, who are not attending school, yada, yada. And yeah, I really want to give you kudos that you're taking some of those students on, because yeah, there's some students at St. Vrain I don't know that they're equipped to support, or, students age out and they have the choice to drop out. And so it's really exciting to hear that you're able to catch some of those students that are falling off kind of out of that net, and that you're able to catch them and provide them with another opportunity or an alternative option to get their GED or high school diploma. So that's wonderful.
Thank you, Crystal. All right, Barbara, you got 5 minutes. You don't have to use them all, but you got them.
Well, I want to add on to what Crystal said. Another student that I have, she's a senior in high school and she's Spanish speaking, and she was very frustrated because she's like, I can never graduate because I just can't learn English and learn the academics, and she dropped out. She ended up in our program, in our Spanish speaking program, to get her GED. And this girl is so motivated. So I was meeting with her and asking her, what would your goals be, and blah, blah, blah. And so then I also encouraged her to be in our English classes. Well, now she's volunteering and doing just very active. And she's really excited. Before, she was very frustrated. And she's only been with us for a month now. So those kinds of things just say, okay, this is why we're here. This is what we do. I would like to say that some of the goals that we hope to do in 2024 is this new database. We really want to see more data, and not just feedback from the students, but concrete data. So we're working on that. And I have the person in charge of that is, that's what she does for her real job. And I also want to say that you asked Mark about what are his challenges, and I agree with what he said. Staffing is a challenge, but our biggest staffing challenge is twofold. Spanish speaking. We lack Spanish speaking instructors, especially math and science. I think I have a science teacher. He was a doctor in Venezuela. And so we're working on going through the process of observing and training and stuff like that. But that's always been a challenge, getting the Spanish speaking staff. But our volunteers, it has been our weakest point of our program. And we had to relook our volunteer program and say, we have to think outside the box. What used to work for volunteers doesn't work anymore. So we started having the students be our volunteers. And by the students being volunteers, they get scholarships and they love it. And we also, on that same line, we want to start having a student support team. The student support team get out to the other fellow students and encourage them to stay with, especially for the GED, get that diploma going. We have students that pass 4 tests. They only have 1 test left to go. We haven't seen them in a year. I have no idea why. And they just, it's very frustrating. And we don't know how to connect. So maybe the student to student can be a better way of connecting. So we hope to build that too. Those are our big goals in 2024 that we hope to do.
Well, thank you so much for what you do in the community, Barb. Really appreciate you and the work that the Open Door does. And have a great night.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, folks. So we have a break. It's been very, very good conversations. So I'm gonna start with a little bit of housekeeping, and then we're gonna go ahead and jump in. So first thing is that this is a public meeting, so it is being recorded, and it'll be available on the city's YouTube channel. Second is since Colorado Statewide Parent is applying for 2 programs, you're gonna get a little bit extra time. Instead of 10, you get 15 minutes for Q&A, and then we will make sure that you get 5 minutes at the end to share whatever you want to share. And so what I'm going to do real quickly is I'm going to introduce the board. I'll let them introduce themselves, and then introduce staff, and then I will let you all introduce yourselves really quickly, and then we'll start the timer. Okay? All right, so let's start. I'm going to start on my bottom left. I got Crystal.
Hi, good evening. My name is Crystal Prieto. I'm the first year board member. Pleasure to meet you.
Nice. Nice to meet you, Crystal.
Alejandro.
Alejandro Prieto, first year on the board. Good evening.
Hello.
Graham.
I am Graham. I'm been on the board. I'm at the end of my 2nd term. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.
Deanna.
Hello, Deanna Blair. I've been on the board 4 years now. Nice to meet you all, or see you all again.
Christina.
Hi, I'm Christina Pacheco. I'm a little under the weather, so my camera's not on. And I just had a question, Jennifer. Are you with Wild Plum?
I am.
Okay.
Oh.
So yeah, there's a little bit of confusion. This is a public meeting, and we are doing Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition's hearing right now.
Okay. Well, I thought that this was the link to join the session, so I'm not really sure.
It is definitely the link, and you are welcome to stay because it is a public hearing. However, we will just be discussing Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition at this time.
You bet. When would be a good time to maybe sign back on and sit in the waiting room?
Yeah, so you're scheduled at 7:40.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's an error on my end. I am so sorry to interrupt you. And I'll
You're
see you in 20 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Christina.
Okay, yeah, I saw Lorena's face. I was like, huh, okay. And then I recognized Jennifer from Wild Plum. So
Okay,
all right. Now we're good.
Yeah,
Okay.
and if she wanted to stay, she's welcome to stay.
Yeah, she could.
Just
Yeah,
couldn't
but
speak during
okay. Good. All right, I'm good.
So Christina's our director, and you can't see her, but Brenda Palacio is the person who's been scheduling and confirming all this stuff, and she is the wizard that makes things happen. So she's so helpful. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the timer. Again, because the board can ask about either program. And they're gonna have 15 minutes to ask questions. Actually, why don't you introduce yourself before I start this timer? Just quickly.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. I just want to first just thank all of you for taking the time tonight to go through all of these interviews and read through all of these very, very lengthy applications and prepare for these conversations. I really appreciate all of you. I'm Lorena Garcia. I'm the CEO of the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition. I've been at CSPC 5.5 years, and I will just leave it at that. And if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Awesome. Thank you, Lynn. I'm going to go ahead and start the timer. Alejandro, you're up first.
Hi, welcome. Thank you, Lorena, for being here as well. Yeah, from what I read, great institution, great work that you're doing. My only question is, where are the dads? I'm a proud single dad, raised my kids with a lot of the same basic what I've read from your application, and are we not recruiting them? What's going on?
That's a great question, Alejandro, and I'll talk on both programs. So, with PASO, with our training of early childhood providers, our FFN providers, it is hard to get men to join and stay in PASO. We have graduated, I would say, 3 men in the last 18 years that PASO has existed, and it's not for a lack of trying. I think we still, unfortunately, have a machismo stigma in the Latino community that it's the woman's job to care for kids, whether it's their own kids or anyone else's kids. I will say that we have seen an uptick in interest in heterosexual marriages from the male partner of the women who have graduated from PASO. So right now, currently, actually in Denver, we have 2 men who have signed up for PASO. And so what our evaluation team has decided to do is to look into and figure out, like, what is it that's going to, like, hopefully if they stick it out through the rest of the class, like, what is it that's going to want, like, what is it that helped them join and kept them there? When it comes to Éxito, we actually do, it's if there's 2 parent teams, we have both parents attend Éxito. If it's a single parent team, we have a single, like the single parent attend Éxito. And interestingly enough, the way that we do our outreach, it is very much grassroots. It's going to parks, it's knocking on doors, and it's finding parents that way. And the parents who we have reached largely are moms. And a lot of that also has to do with the fact that when our Éxito coordinators are out there recruiting, they're looking at, like, who is the parent who's a person that's, like, playing with the kids, and they're going to go talk to that person. So outside of this, that's not related to either of these programs, I want you to know that we have relaunched our program that CSPC started with, which was Los Padres. And we've relaunched Las Familias. And Las Familias requires, if it's a 2-parent household, both parents are there. If it's a single parent household, the single parent is there. If it's a household that has, like, a grandparent and a single parent caring for them, they both have to be there. So we just relaunched that because we also saw, like, wow, we are really not reaching the Latino men. And so but that's really that's separate from PASO and Éxito, but that is a huge challenge that we face with PASO in particular.
A follow-up to that would be, is the program accessible to padres that are fathers of Latino children, but they don't identify themselves as Latino?
It's available to English speakers, Spanish speakers, we have it both in English and Spanish. The root of the curriculum is for Latinos, but we don't say, hey, Latino padres, vengan a tomar esta clase. Like, we don't tell them, like, you have to come if you're a Latino parent, you know, like, we're very much around, like, we want this to be rooted in fatherhoodness. And so when it's around Paso, for example, we talk about child caring. We talk about, like, this is about, like, providing the best care for the kids that you're caring for. We offer it in Spanish, we offer it in English, and then we do have a very specific curriculum when we have a cohort that's for men of refugees, because they are culturally competent, it is a culturally relevant, competent program. And so we have parents, like, the demographic of the families that we serve span the Latin American countries, whether it's like Mexicano or Colombian or anything like that. Like, it very much spans that. And our English speaking course is largely made up of Chicano providers, or Chicana providers, I'll say.
Thank you. Any other questions? Deanna.
Hi, I just had a housekeeping issue from your applications for the two programs. It looked like you had different sized boards. Like the Paso program, there were 5 board members and Éxito had 4. I'm just wondering if that was an error in the application or if you had 2 separate boards for those 2 programs.
Total human error.
Okay, that's what I figured, but it was interesting to me, so I was just double checking because I thought it would be interesting to have 2 different boards. So I was going to ask you about that if you were doing that. So okay.
That would be cool, but no, I can't tell you a cool story about that.
I mean, it's hard enough to get board members for 1 board, probably, much less 2 boards. So okay.
We did have 5, and now we have 4. Our board president decided to step down and pursue her education. So we were thrilled about that. And now we're looking for board members. Anyone interested?
Go ahead, Crystal.
Awesome. Well, it was such a pleasure kind of reading a little bit about your organization. I currently am almost done with my schooling in high-risk youth studies. I'm currently doing an internship with the St. Vrain Valley School District and monitoring attendance for students, which is kind of the first indicator of, there's something going on. We're seeing a lot of trends in, a lot of the students who are not attending school have IEPs, 504s, the English as a second language. And so my question for you is, being a Boulder County kind of advocate for families and a resource navigator. Sorry about my dogs in the background. I'm pretty knowledgeable on resources, and I'm surprised that I haven't ran into yours. And so I guess it's a 2-pronged question. One would be, what are you doing? Well, for one, how are you working with the local districts here, St. Vrain Valley School District and BVSD, to support the students in our location? And also, how are you advertising your services and reaching out to families, ensuring that they know of your programs? Because kind of it is historically, Boulder County programs have been more harder to obtain or know about.
Yeah, that's a great question. And you are totally going to put me in a rock and a hard place with St. Vrain. So I'll start with Boulder. So we have a fantastic relationship with Boulder. We have monthly meetings with the district around IEPs. We've worked with them. Actually, our VOS program, which is also not one of the programs you're evaluating right now, but our VOS program is actually made up of parents that graduate from Éxito. And the VOS program advocated to incorporate more healthy, nutritious foods in Boulder County. Now, in St. Vrain Valley Schools, we used to have a fantastic relationship. St. Vrain Valley Schools used to fund Paso for a long time. When they hired a new director of partnerships or something like that, all external contracts were terminated, whether the actual contract was completed. So they no longer continue to fund Paso. They funded Éxito for another year. And it's not really a friendly relationship, only because the VOS parents have been pressuring St. Vrain Valley Schools also to bring on and bring in more healthier, nutritious foods. And so that type of added like advocacy pressure from the parents has made St. Vrain not actually really want to continue supporting Éxito and Paso, which, you know, it's one of those calculations you have to make as an organization. Like, do we want to silence parents so that we can, you know, continue to count on their dollars, or do we want to continue to empower parents and say, you go for it, and we will figure out how to make up the dollars that we're not getting? And we obviously chose the latter.
And so how are you connecting with those parents in St. Vrain if St. Vrain itself is not making it known, is not kind of advertising your program like they would be before?
We are at school pickup lines. We are at the events, back to school nights. We find our way into the spaces where parents are.
Okay. Perfect. And I really commend the work and the advocacy that you're doing on behalf or helping the parents advocate for healthier lunches. I'm currently advocating or trying to advocate for longer lunches for elementary students who only have 20 minutes.
Yes.
And being that especially students who eat hot lunch, which is a disparity and an equity issue, they have even less time because they have to wait in the lunch line and make it through. So at the end of the day, these students are only getting maybe 5 to 7 minutes to eat. So good job on your end and helping parents advocate for themselves and their families.
You know, Crystal, we should connect offline because my other part-time job is I'm a state legislator, and so we're actually working on some of like some of policies around that, around like free time and playground and lunchtime for schools. So if you want to connect offline, like let's do that.
I would love to do that because I've ran into roadblocks here in St. Vrain Valley School District. So thank you. I'll be contacting you soon.
Great.
Thank you, Crystal. Any other questions? Go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, thank you for all your work. Appreciate it. The curriculum in Paso, is it sufficient, you know, minus the hours needed to get a CDA, or are there other courses needed outside your program?
No, we actually took when CSPC went through the process of connecting Paso to the CDA, we actually, while we say it's 120 official hours, it's actually 136 hours. What Paso encompasses surpasses what the CDA requires. And the reason for that is because the CDA itself is not very culturally relevant or culturally competent. And so we want to make sure that when we are talking about like motor skills development, or when we're talking about playtime, or when we're talking about motor skills and like or language development, or the multiple intelligences, that we're relating that to cultural competency. And so a lot of what happens is we also have to train our providers on counting 1 through 10 also in English, especially if they're non-English speakers, because we know that even if a young child can count to 7 in both languages, they know 14 numbers. 14, they don't just know 7. But the kindergarten teacher will only be able to say they know 7 numbers because they can only count to 7 in English. So we have to spend extra time working with them on like language access, language justice, making sure that they can also like are teaching essentially like bilingual early childhood education so that they can enter school with knowing 20 numbers instead of 10. And like, you know, that's just that we could have, I'm sure that like all of us here could love like hours long conversation on talking about bilingual ed and like why it's such a disparity that like kids that only know 7 like 7 letters in English or 7 numbers in English are put in IEPs because they know 14 numbers actually. So like you know, but that's really what it is.
Thank you.
Christina?
Hi, thanks, Lorena. Can you talk about how you measure outcomes in your kiddos in your programs?
Yeah. Christina, my heart goes out to you. It sounds so like so much effort to ask that question. So we're actually shifting our evaluation practice right now. We used to do a pre-test and a post-test. And we'd also have an intermediate like in between, like observation evaluation. So where the teachers would go into the home of the provider and they would evaluate between 4 visits, like how they improved on the implementation of what they're learning. Now we're doing the observation evaluation and a post-reflective survey. We're not doing a pre and post test. The reason why we don't do a pre and post test anymore is because we've seen so much research come up that basically says that when you set up for a pre and post test, it already starts people at a deficit, because they start by being like, God, I don't know any of this, or like, oh, I think I know this. So like, we don't do the pre and post test anymore because we don't want people to start off feeling like crap. So now we just do a post-reflective survey. CSPC underwent a 5-year rigorous evaluation between 2012 and 2017. And in 2018, we were deemed evidence-based. And that was based on the demonstration of knowledge and skills growth of the providers in PASO and school readiness scores of the kids under PASO provider care. That the kids that were in the care of PASO providers showed an exponential increase in their school readiness scores. And so we can't continue, unfortunately, measuring the children's improvement in the PASO care because it's so expensive. But we are continuing to provide the program to fidelity of that evidence-based study. So we are confident that the kids that are in the care of these providers continue to show that school readiness score improvement.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our timer has gone off. See, it goes fast when we're having these really great conversations. So now I'll give you your 5 minutes about that you get to share. And you know, if bored or if I have further questions, which I do, I'll email you them. But I'll give you your time so you can you have 5 minutes to share whatever you want to share with the board members.
I don't think I'll take the full 5 minutes. I think what's important for me is that Éxito is successful because PASO is successful, and PASO is successful because Éxito is successful. We know fully you cannot have successful educational outcomes if you don't have those that are caring for and teaching kids, working with parents. They're both needed. And so I just want to just put that out there. Like, as you're going through your decision making, like, just recognize that PASO will still be awesome if you don't fund Éxito, but not as awesome. And Éxito will still be fantastic if you don't fund PASO, but not as fantastic as if we can continue providing both these programs to the parents and providers in Longmont.
All right.
At the same time.
Thank you so much, Lena, for your time tonight. Appreciate the work that you all do here in our community. And yeah, if there's any more follow-up questions, we will reach out.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And Crystal, hit me up for reals.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great rest of your night.
You too.
All right. We are back on time, folks. Good job. We are right on time. In fact, we're about a minute ahead now, which is good. So the next group only has one program, so they just get a regular 10 minutes. You know, I think we gave the other group, it'll be interesting. I don't know what to do with the YMCA because they actually have 3 programs. So yeah, we'll have to figure that one out. We'll see how long we go with this. And if we get early and they show up early, we'll let them in early. Just because they have 3 programs. We've never had anybody have 3 programs. So all right, why don't we let Wild Plum in? All right, they're connected to audio. Hey, Amy. Hey, Jennifer.
Hello. Hi there. I'm trying to. There we go.
I've got a
All
good
right.
feeling.
Well, welcome back, Jennifer.
Thanks for the coaching and sorry for the calendar mess up. Appreciate
No
you
worries, no worries, no worries.
accommodating me.
So let me
I
do some
didn't
housekeeping.
crash the party.
No, hey, it's a public meeting. If anybody wants to come, they're more than welcome to come.
Great.
So let me just do some housekeeping real quick. As I just mentioned, it's a public meeting, so it is being recorded and will be on the city's YouTube page. What I'm gonna do is you will have 10 minutes of Q&A, and then you'll have an extra 5 minutes that you can share whatever you want to share with the board. I'm gonna introduce the board, let them introduce themselves, and then I'll introduce staff, and then I'll let you all introduce yourselves, and then we'll start the timer. So I'm gonna start on my top right, Deanna.
Hello, I'm Deanna Blair. I've been on the board for 4 years, and it's nice to see you all.
Graham.
Hi, I'm Graham. I'm at the end of my second term on the board. Nice to see you all tonight.
Alejandro.
Hello, Alejandro Prieto. This is my first year on the board.
Crystal.
Hello again, Crystal Prieto, my first year on the board. Pleasure seeing you again.
Awesome. Christina.
Hi there. You both know me. I'm under the weather, so my camera is off. I'm fighting the flu.
Hi, Christina.
All right, and you can't see her, but Brenda Palacio, who confirms and schedules with you all, she is running the back end of the meeting, handling the recording and all that kind of stuff. So why don't you two introduce yourselves, and then I'll give you your time.
Amy, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm Amy Ogilvie. I'm the CEO of the Wild Plum Center. This is probably my 25th year of doing these hearings, one sitting in your seats and well, not one, but many years sitting in your seats and then many years sitting in this seat. So good to see everybody. And I think I'm going to try and get one more light on so I'm not so dark. So I'm just going to turn my camera off for a half a second. I'll be right back while Jen introduces herself.
Sure. Hi there, my name is Jen Clark, and I came on board with Wild Plum as a development officer at the end of June. So I've been here a little over 3 months. And this is my first hearing with the city. So thanks.
Little
All
better.
right.
I still have my halo, but I'm a little better.
No worries. It's a great conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and start the 10-minute timer and see who has the first question. Go ahead, Deanna.
This is sort of maybe an easy question, but we've talked to some other providers who do similar services who've talked about staffing issues. I'm just wondering if you've had staffing issues, and if so, how you've tried to deal with those staffing issues.
Jen, I'm happy to answer that one. Yeah, we've had tons of staffing issues. It's a real thing out there. The early childhood workforce is pretty diminished right now, and many people left during the pandemic because it was darn hard taking care of babies, through all of that. And so at Wild Plum, we've had a bit of turnover. We had a really seasoned staff for a long time. Staff that had been with us 25, 30 plus years. We actually just had a staff person that celebrated 50 years with us a couple of weeks ago. So it's been a real thing to lose the staff. So what we've been doing, I think, is pretty innovative. And being a Head Start program, we have a different set of regulations that we follow. And they are different from childcare licensing. So our staff are required to have a bachelor's degree or higher to be teachers in our program, where that's not the case for any other childcare center you've spoken to tonight or that you will speak to through this process. We're the only one in that serves Longmont at that level other than the school districts. So we have been working with Front Range Community College and University of Colorado, and we have been working with our teaching assistant teams to be able to take college classes on our dime during their work hours with us, so that they're building their skill and their credentials in the early childhood world. We've had 13 staff that have taken advantage of that, and several of them are just about to complete associate's degrees, and then will continue on for their bachelor degrees after they get the associate degrees in place. So that's the best we're doing, is trying to grow our own. We have definitely hired a lot of younger people with less experience, and we're trying to pair them up with folks that do have experience to be good, solid trainers for the new folks.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, thanks, Amy and Jennifer. Appreciate your work.
Hi, Graham.
My question is around measuring outcomes. You mentioned the PFCE performance outcome as a way to measure some of the, the program output. Could you just give some color and context to what that is and how it functions?
Yeah. Do you know enough about that yet, Jen, or do you want me to
I
take?
don't. I'm still
Okay.
getting my head around all the Head Start, so I'm going to chime in when I feel I can add something and offer an answer to assist Amy to some
Okay.
degree.
Yeah. So another thing that makes us unique from all the other child care centers that you're going to be talking to is that we work with families, and we work with families a lot, not just, hey, how's your kid doing? They had a good day. Don't forget to bring lunch tomorrow, that kind of stuff. We assign a case manager to every family that we have in our program, and that case manager works with families to establish goals for self-sufficiency, for moving towards self-sufficiency. And part of that process is an assessment of where the family is in a variety of different areas: housing, food insecurity, childcare, connections in the community, having a support system around them, substance abuse. I mean, it's a long list of things, Graham, that our case managers are going over with families. And that's done twice during the year. So at the beginning of the school year, they're really working with families to say, where do you think you are on this? Do you feel like, you've got this one and you're doing really well in this area, or do you need some help here? And they score out on like a not yet emerging solid expert kind of scale, and then post at the end of the year on where they are. So we're looking at the change from start of the year to the end of the year for the families.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Amy.
Alejandro.
Hello, ladies. Good evening. Thank you so much for the service you provide. I hope I coming across right. Everybody can hear me good, because my earphone gave me some kind of error. Cool. I'm noticing that you have a significant amount of staff members that are Hispanic or Latine, which is amazing. I'm just wondering, how does that translate in leadership within the organization? Is your leadership also comprised of a heavy presence of Latino or Latine individuals?
Absolutely. And I hope that there was some data in the application around some statistics with that. As we look at the personnel, we're at about 59%. 28 staff are current or prior consumers. We have an 11-member policy council, and 9 of those they all pretty much have lived experience for the most part, as I understand it. And 9 of the 11 are bilingual. And then as far as the last count, I have about 33 bilingual staff members support operations.
And then Alejandro, adding to that, on our the leadership team that reports directly to me, our chief program officer that oversees all the children's services for the program is Latina. Our CFO is Latina. There's Jen, myself, and Christy, who is Caucasian white, not non-Latina.
Thank you.
So
Crystal, go ahead.
50% of the people that report to me.
Awesome. So yeah, I am a previous parent of Wild Plum, and was a part of the Parent Policy Council, and hear wonderful things about Wild Plum all the time. I wish there were a Wild Plum in every city and county because it just does wonderful things for families. My question is not so much that was on the application, but I'm hearing that your organizations is undertaking some major changes as far as like classroom teachers and how long that they stay with children. And my question was around in deciding these major changes, are these reflective of the needs of the population that you serve, or more so, staffing shortages? Just wanting to see what you have to add for that.
Crystal, I think I might need a little bit more about that, because the changes that we're making with our classroom staff is that we've actually extended hours for families. And we're not reducing the amount of time teachers and
No,
folks
not
that
the
do
amount of
adjustments.
time. I think teachers used to follow children throughout the grades. I would say grades, but it's not necessarily grades, but the year or the age group classes that they were in. And I heard you're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, so that's not accurate, but let me kind of walk you through what has happened. So so our 0 to 3-year-old center-based group, those children start, if they start as babies, they're with the same teachers all the way until they're 3 years old. We also have had staff turnover, and when you have staff turnover, you have to shift things so that there's equal strength across multiple classrooms. So sometimes there are changes that have to happen in teachers. That usually happens when we're changing like the school year, right? So when kids are aging up from being infants to the 1 to 2-year-olds to the 2 to 3-year-olds, we make those changes during that time. But that is turnover related that's causing that. That's not, a choice that we're making. And then in the preschool program, the kiddos are starting as 3-year-olds with the same teacher, and they have the same teacher for 3 and 4-year-olds. There's some changes to that because parents move, or like we extended hours this year. We added Fridays, and some families didn't want the Fridays, so they couldn't stay with their same teacher because of that. So there's been some changes with regard to that.
Wonderful. Thank you for explaining that. I'm happy to hear that you guys are still kind of implementing that process where the teacher follows the student throughout the different age classes or aged classes. Because that was something super special about your organization that wasn't a part of every other organization. So I'm happy to hear that that's still a thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a real value to us, and I think it benefits those young kiddos quite a bit. So
Thank you, Amy. So we only have about a minute left, so I'll take the last question. And Amy, board and staff look at different things, right? So board is talking to you about your programs, your outcomes, etc. Not that we don't look at that, but I tend to focus more on the agency level question. And I know a little bit about Head Start, for example. I know that so it's good that you have Jennifer. I know that you can't necessarily use federal dollars for fundraising. I know that's one of the limits that Head Start puts on you. So what's the work on the development side outside the federal? Because my understanding, I mean, Head Start throughout the country, right? But they don't necessarily take into consideration cost of living, just the reality of where you're doing your Head Start. And so what's the work on the development side that's outside of the Head Start grant?
Well, when I got here, I was trying to figure out how to cast a broader net out in the community and look at really the donors and the community for some support outside of the family foundations that we might already receive support from, and the larger foundations. We're targeting hard corporate this year and are trying to develop some relationships through planning a major event. And so we're going to look to really create relationships and cultivate those relationships with corporate so that there's sponsorship dollars. And then down the road, hopefully the folks that are involved in that business will get a little closer to Wild Plum and want to support us as a donor, or support us in other ways with in-kind. So my own approach is to, like I said, cast a broader net and identify the pockets that we don't have any relationships with, and look to start to cultivate that. And that's, with the chamber and some of the businesses we already have small scale relationships with, that we could move the needle with more energy and more intention. So it's there's a plan around this, and it's certainly looking to generate community interest so that everybody knows who Wild Plum is and the quality of the services that our families and our children receive. It's exceptional.
Thank you.
So at the risk of using a little bit of our time, that we have to present to you guys, I would just throw out we're at about getting close to about a $5 million budget. When you add in all of our matching funds and that kind of thing that we have to have, it is about a $5 million budget. Our federal funds, $2.6, $2.7 million, $3 million when you've got ARPA funds and things like that kind of thrown into the mix. So we're bringing in a whole lot of other money that's not federal dollars. We get quite a bit from CCAP. We're UPK providers. You guys for sure, the donation of space that you guys give to us, the funds that you guys give to us, the county, And then all of the little, things that Jen's talking about with different family foundations, like the Dodge Family Foundation, who wrote Creative Curriculum, they donate to us. So we've got, and we have a one donor that donates a lot of money to us every year. We're not allowed to say his name out loud. He doesn't even want a thank you note to us or from us. So like we work all of those different avenues, and corporate is really an area that we haven't hit hard, but we do have some good relationships. Like PNC Bank is a great relationship. Xilinx AMD, they're a great relationship with us. Centura's coming on board really heavy right now with us. So, there's some good corporate work that's going on.
Good to hear. Good to hear. All right. So I'm gonna give you 4 minutes.
Okay.
5. Go ahead and take your 4 minutes.
Go for it, Jen.
Well, I'm going to speak from a personal position and joining the organization. I've had 20 years working for the nonprofit sector, and the majority of them raising funds. And I knew what Head Start was on the surface, and taking a deeper dive and being part of this operation for 3 months has honestly, Amy, you can go away, blown my mind. It's impressive here, the quality of services, the commitment of the staff, hearing about the entities such as the Policy Council and their input, the times I've interfaced with the teachers, they're so committed. So I just am really, really impressed with the services that are provided and the impact. The impact is real. Wild Plum is not a child care center. It's a learning center. And all of the extra supports that families can receive, I think, is phenomenal. That's truly the path to self-sufficiency and breaking generational poverty. So that's what moves me when I work for Wild Plum, and when I see the families, and when I hear from other people in the community like Crystal, that has connections and have that lived experience and understands the organization. It's worthy of marketing and promotion, and taking a stand that Wild Plum, I would have to say, is more than likely the leaders in early childhood education. I'd like to think that. But that's what I can offer in my 90+ days here. And I appreciate your time and the support Wild Plum gets from the city, certainly.
Let me just throw out 2 big projects on the horizon. Big project number 1 is the early learning hub with TLC, where we'll be opening classrooms along with TLC in the same building. And that's going to be a big one-stop shop for early childhood education, and it's going to span the whole financial range, right? So you'll have from the folks that qualify for Head Start all the way through full paying people that are going to TLC. Along with friend, family, neighbor care space and all kinds of other things that are going to be happening out of that building, connections to the universities and teaching classes to staff. Second project is working with the Longmont Housing Authority on the project that they're working on at 17th and Hover, and co-locating a child care center in that location. We've been consulting with them on that project about how the child care center should go down and what it should look like, and classroom sizes and all those kinds of requirements, with the hope that we're going to be the provider in the end. We need to do some financial analysis, and I need a board commitment before I can commit to that, but we were committed to working on the project and making it work for whoever ends up as the child care provider in that space. So 2 big projects there. And there's a lot of community stuff going on at the state level, at the local level. So, and we're right in, sleeves rolled up on all those projects.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate all the work that you do, and have a great rest of your night.
Yeah, you guys too. You're almost done. So see ya.
Getting there. Getting
Thank
there.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. So I think that the YMCA is already here. We're still about a minute ahead, so we can let them in. All right, welcome, Lisa. And how do you say your name again? Is it Morsha?
Motria.
Mortria. Okay,
And
you're on. Yeah, go ahead.
Chris is joining us as well.
Okay, Chris is joining us at some point. Okay, so let me do some housekeeping as he joins. This is a public meeting, so it is being recorded. You know, you're an interesting case because we've never had an agency apply for 3 programs, right? And so it's a little bit interesting to see. Typically, we give you 15 minutes if we have time. We'll try and give you 20. And that's for the Q&A time. We don't have to use that all that time. And then we'll give you 5 minutes to share whatever you want to share. But we've never really had. Again, this is kind of unique for us. Let me introduce the board real quickly, and then I'll give you all a chance to introduce yourselves, and then we will start the timer. So I'm gonna start from my bottom left. Crystal.
Hi, good evening. My name is Crystal Prieto. I'm a first-year board member here with the City of Longmont Housing and Human Services Board. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Alejandro.
Alejandro Prieto, this is my first year with the board. Good evening.
Graham.
I am Graham. I'm in my 2nd term on the board. Nice to meet y'all.
Deanna.
Hello, I'm Deanna Blair. I'm on my 4th year with the board, and it's nice to see you all. Thank you for being here tonight.
All right, Christina's under the weather, so her camera's off.
Hi there, I'm Christina Pacheco, Human Services Director with the City of Longmont. Thank you.
And you can't see her, but Brenda Palacio is in the background. She's the one that confirms these meetings and communicates with you all. And we call her the wizard. She just handles things in the background, and I really appreciate her work with all the stuff that we do. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the timer. Like I said, we'll try 20 again. We may not use them all. And hopefully Chris will join us here in a second. But I will start the timer. Oh, wait. Before I start the timer, I'll pause the timer. Lisa, why don't you and Morty introduce yourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Lisa Sweeney, Senior Vice President of Community Programs. So all things child care at the Y. I apologize, I'm in my car. My husband's flight got canceled and my kiddos got boxing tonight. So computer set up in my car.
Hi, I'm Motria Ramos. I'm the Senior Director of Grants at the YMCA. And we're thrilled to be here. Thanks for considering our proposals. And just a little update, I did call Chris. He's hopping on. He was just in a meeting, so he'll be with us shortly.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I see him in the waiting room, so he'll join us here in a second. Hey, Chris, can you hear us?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Why don't you take a couple seconds to introduce yourself? We're doing introductions right now.
Sure. Sorry about that, you guys. I was on with Jeff Friesner for the 3E ballot public hearing. Just literally finished at 8. So Chris Coker, CEO of the YMCAs of Northern Colorado. Been here with this Y for about 15 years. Been with the Y for 32 years.
Awesome. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start the timer again and start some questions from the board and or staff. And it's not, I can start because I have questions. But wait, go ahead. Graham first and then Christina.
Okay, 3 programs. So I'm going to try to just maybe ask about 2. The school age program, you mentioned one of your outcomes is social emotional learning, growth or advancement based on some of the curriculum there. How do you measure that?
Oh, I could take that one. What we did, I got it. Is we hire a third-party company called Hello Insights. Hello Insights does pre and post questioning of the kids and then does statistical analysis. So in our statistical analysis of different social emotional learning skills like empathy, things like that, the kids on average using the program that we use gain 2 point something more skills than the kids that than the control group that wasn't in that program. Lisa, did I say that right?
Did, yes. And that program, it's a curriculum called Pop Culture Hero that teaches social emotional skills and development to our youngest, our kindergartners, on up through our preteens.
It uses proxy theory. So in other words, kids have a very hard time accessing their emotions around the death of a dog, right? Say their pet dies and they're way off and they don't know how to talk about that. But they can talk all day long about how Harry Potter felt, or Batman, or Spider-Man with the death of a family member. And to be quite honest, our young staff, our 20-something staff, they do too. They know all of that stuff. And so it uses that pop culture as proxy emotional learning for the kids. And it's pretty powerful tool for us to use. And we have videos that we show the kids that we filmed at the Y. We in our conference room where we had actors come in dressed as the pop culture hero and talk about whatever theirs happened to be, that they were, you know, their social emotional learning skill. So the kids like, oh my God, Elsa's telling me about this, or Spider-Man, or Black Panther. So it's kind of cool.
Nice, cool. I didn't have questions about the affordable early childhood, but the summer camp, I had questions about equitable summer camp. You're asking for 60,000. You know, what evidence is there that summer camp improves or changes people's and communities' lives?
ACA, American Camping Association, spent tons of money on that exact question, and has shown that I think it was 2/3 of the children that attend summer camp are better because of it afterwards, especially on things around resilience, making friends, conflict resolution, those skills that when we send our kids away, and I'm not talking just resident camp, but day camp, when we send our kids out into, you know, like school, right? We're hoping that they're better off from going to school around all those, I hate to use social emotional, but it's those skills, those soft skills, those interpersonal skills. And what we have though right there is the ratios are very different than in school. So our staff are like right there on those kids, like, whoa, that wasn't cool what you just did. Think about what just happened there. Because we also use Pop Culture Hero in our day camps. And so like, didn't we just talk about this? Didn't you get your empathy bead or your friendship bead or something like that? So there's a lot of empirical factual data that shows that type of group learning works. Now, of course, not for every child, right? There's some kids that just have a bad experience or they don't do well in the group, especially coming out of COVID. COVID, man, that first summer out of COVID and then the following summer, this was kind of the first summer that we've had that was starting to get back to about what 2019 looked like from the social emotion, from the kids. I'll tell you what wasn't though is our staff. Our staff are still having a very, very hard time coming out of that with their EQ intact.
And our day camps this year, for instance, in Longmont, we were sold out every week. We had a capacity of 150, and even before camp started, we had to go back to our licensors and say, we need to set up tents and we need to change over conference rooms into licensed space. So we served on average about 170 kids every day at Longmont. And of that 170, about 80% of them were on fee assistance, be it CCAP, third party, or the Y. And those are kids that would have been home. There's just not a lot of options for low income affordable summer camp. Those families that needed us this summer were there from 7 to 6, Monday through Friday. We partnered with St. Vrain to make sure they were fed every day, which was great, and with the food pantries and things. And those kids got swim lessons over the summer. They got a safe place to be. So that social emotional piece was there, that they weren't home all summer long. So it was a really powerful summer at that site, shuffling all those kids around. They had a fantastic summer, and we didn't really have to turn anybody away. We were able to move kids around. If we couldn't get them in at Longmont, we got them over to Boulder. So our staff were super creative to make sure those families were served, and they all had a safe place to be.
So before I go to, oh, thank you. Before I go to Alejandro, I gotta admit, I have a question because I struggled with this application when I first read it. Right. So our education and skill building priority is really around how do we close the education, the learning gap, the education gap. And don't get me wrong, I have kids, and summer camp is great for them and they need it, and it's good, that social piece. But I really struggled about how do we connect this to our educational goals around can you talk a little bit about how this helps kids academically, and closing that graduation gap and that learning gap?
Right. And just to add a little bit to that also, Eliberto, is I know that your organization also applied for Metropolitan Mayor's funding, which is a 1-year funding contract, and were awarded 67,450. And so just want to make sure that that we're clear on what the asks are for this grant, given kind of what Eliberto talked about as well.
Perfect. And I'll let Motria talk about the 2 different asks there. But definitely we see with our summer camp kids, there is a lot of learning that happens at camp. We do a ton of STEM activities throughout the summer. We have a lot of reading time. We partner with the library to make sure that we've got books in kids' hands throughout the summer, and we keep a lot of routine. We know that kids thrive on routine, and so the summer they have a very set routine, much like the school year. So they're staying on top of going through those activities. We know they've got a ton of fun time. They're jumping in pools and doing that part as well, that healthy living piece, and they're safe and secure during summer. But there really is a lot of other things that they're doing. Talking about that partnership again, we had about 30 kids that were able to attend Project Launch. A lot of them we even provided busing for so that they could go to summer school, because a lot of those kids could not go, parents couldn't come pick them up midday, so they wouldn't have been able to go to Project Launch and come to us at 2:30, 3 o'clock when it ended. Or that Friday that Project Launch wasn't in program. So we worked on those schedules with families to figure out what they needed and what would work. So we did some busing for the summer when some of those families reached out and said they needed it. So it does cross over into that as well to help support, especially those sites where Project Launch didn't have an aftercare for summer this year going on. But definitely our kids, a ton of STEAM activities, that creative energy, getting that out with them, a lot of problem solving skills, those kinds of things that carry right over into the classroom.
Lisa, what's the curriculum package that we purchased with the Pop Culture Hero?
We've been using MindWorks. They are going out of business, sadly, but we just did a demo with a new program that MindWorks has kind of recommended. But again, it's STEAM Ventures, doing all of those fun STEAM and imaginative science activities. Right. And they're very focused on problem solving.
We've tried to purchase the same curriculums that the school district uses so that there's a continuum of same language, same learning, same things, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to have the kids hearing something during 9 months out of the year and then it's a whole different vocabulary during the other 3. So we try and combine that with the school district so that it's a continuum of learning for them, and that you don't get that summer learning drop, because no matter what, the best scenario is that they would be in summer school, the kids that need the help, and then with us where we can continue that on and make sure they're fed, and those that are kinetic learners, because a certain amount of kids don't do well in school because they're kinetic learners, and schools like sit down, pay attention. Whereas summer camp, there's a whole different thing that goes on where you're moving around a little bit while you're doing those STEAM activities. So maybe they didn't get it during the school year. Hopefully then those kids that got it with us and it reinforced what happened during the school year.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And can you answer
Can I-
Christina's question?
Yeah, can I add something to that? So just to remind you, for that Metro District grant that we received, that grant specifically targeted older kids. I think it was the 12 to 18-year-olds. So the 40,000 that we received two grants. The 40,000 that we received was for our teen programs, and that's a whole different program that supports teens during after school and all those types of things. And then the 27,450 or whatever we received was for our school age program, but specifically funding would go to those older kids. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's what I needed.
Go ahead, Alejandro.
So I'm a strong believer of self-esteem boosting for children, for myself. If I see people that look like me in leadership positions, that helps me out a lot. I mean, that also helps out a lot of children. And we saw with pop culture, we saw the Black Panther really gave a lot of support for the Black African-American communities. And then we saw Black Panther Part 2 referring to pop culture. It also gave a boost to the Mexican Americans community, with the heroes being that they look like them. I've noticed in your application, the demographics, all your staff checked other. Is that a reality, or was that just maybe I don't know, an error?
I don't think that was an error. Our staff is pretty diverse. I mean, our staff is more diverse in the community, and so is our board of directors. So I can't answer the question of why that is. But the other thing, here's what I can tell you. If you look at our staff this summer, right? Come and look at our staff, and you'll see the diversity that's there. The other thing, though, is these 20-something-year-olds. There's a lot of other in there as far as what they like. Oh, identify this, identify as that. So we're going to have to refigure out how to, like in the Y, our national office, we did this huge. It was 6 months diversity training for our staff, where every Friday for like 6 months we had 4 or 5 hours of diversity training to get everybody on the same page. And they focus on 22 points of diversity. So we might have screwed up all the surveys by giving them that much training in diversity. So that's all I can tell you is from a visual diversity perspective, our staff is exceptionally diverse.
Awesome. No, that's great to hear. Because seeing the application, it just reflects something weird. It stands out to me.
Here at the Longmont Y, because we had the boxing gym, it brings in a large. It's a whole different thing going on there in our Y than I have in other Ys, which is great. It's wonderful. And so that changes the staff pool that I get to hire from, because I get those kids in and I'm like, hey, dude, you need to work at camp with these kids this summer. They're going to love you. So
nice. Which brings me to then gender diversity. I do see that you have participants that do identify as trans and non-binary, but I don't see any staff that do. Are you what I mean? It's coming from a minority. I know it's hard. Yeah. It's great to see the empathy coming from people that are not, but the true feeling of who you are.
I'm pretty sure we do. Lisa, do you want to?
We do. Interestingly had a call today with a parent at one of our programs that made a statement back. The staff member's email signature had they them, and the parent responded back, keep your they them away from my child. And I called our COO and said, let's talk about this. How are we going to address this? And that is a trans staff that we put our foot down very hard on it to say the Y is inclusive. We've dealt with this with resident camper. We've had to talk with our licensors about what cabin that staff member should be in. And we've taken a very hard stand on that. So I do feel the Y is exceptionally welcoming to folks, that regardless of how they want to identify, how they choose to identify, and we don't ask them to inform us. We just, you know, if they're comfortable giving us that information and that data for these reports and things, absolutely. But we take a very hard stance around that of the why. One of our core values, we just added in inclusive, and we live by that. It comes up in every meeting. And so all of those levels, we're very representative of that. So I would say on my team, I oversee all of our child care, anywhere from our preschool up through our teen programs. I would say we probably have 6 to 8 staff that I engage with on a daily basis that identify as trans or non-binary.
Yeah, there was, when we did it, we were only the second resident camp at our Camp Santa Maria in the United States that ran a family camp for families with kids who were transgender, because they needed support. Like, okay, how do I work through this? So we actually ran family camps, and it was only the second one in the United States. And you probably, it's old news now, but we work with Out Boulder. We run their prom for Out Boulder for the high school kids. So I don't know what else to say.
so Chris, so I'm gonna shift gears because you know the board looks at primarily your program part of the application, and staff tends to look at your finances and your strategic goals, etc. And I've been around for a while, so I know stuff. And I was looking at your audit, and I'm not a CPA, but I've read plenty of audits and things. I wanted to check in with you on, you know, the continuing work toward making the YMCA of Northern Colorado sustainable. And you know, I also know that you got a lot of one-time federal dollars, right? ARPA's going away. So what's the plan?
How are we? We'll balance. Here's the answer. We're terrible. It's a terrible business, right? We're horrible business people because we make money and we're like, here, come in, more children. Here's staff, go buy this equipment. I mean, we suck at business, but what we don't suck at is balancing our budget. We during COVID, it was a nightmare, like everybody had, but we made it through COVID and we're strong. We have a good, healthy balance sheet right now. We'll have we're forecasting $1.2 to $1.6 million in cash end of this year with a balanced budget. Our budget is going to look really like we made $2 million. It's because we're in the middle of a capital campaign, right? So we're getting capital money and grants in, and it's throwing off our operating budget. But from unrestricted, that's restricted money. But from unrestricted standpoint, we're healthy. We'll do just fine this year. When we surplus $60,000, it's a big year, and our senior staff drives it to balanced. So in other words, if we have money, we fix something, or we buy something, or we give a raise to a department. So that's why it's always right there on the thin edge. But I keep a reserve. I try and keep, you know, $1 million in a reserve account for.
Yeah, you want to have 3 months as possible, right? That's kind of that's the best practice, right?
Yeah, for us, 3 months of cash, that'd be a couple $1 million, and that's too much cash for us to keep as a nonprofit. But I try and keep $1 million there, so that when if a boiler goes out, a roof, a leak in the pool, something like that, I can do it. And then we go on a capital campaign. Like we're in a $7 million capital campaign right now, and it's to fix big stuff that accumulates over time. Because the public expects us to try and keep our prices low and give away as much as we can. And then they give to us in a capital manner because they're like, hey, you deserve that. You scholarshiped, I think it's $2.5 million last year of kids. I mean,
well, good to hear. So Crystal, if you can make it a quick, our time has actually run out, but you had your hand up before time ran out, so I'll
Yep.
let you ask your question.
And I don't know if it's gonna be quick, but I'll try. So, I am actually, absolutely love the YMCA. Being a resident of Longmont for a long time, you know, your programs are one of the programs that were immediately available to myself and other families I knew. You know, we're meeting with a lot of programs tonight, and some of them I've never even heard of. And I can say the YMCA has probably provides more services to children compared to all organizations we met with tonight. So I really want to thank you guys for the hard work that you do. Kind of going into, you know, your summer camp, the camp. I think someone asked earlier, what does summer camp do as far as like on an academic standpoint? And I think I was reading some statistics around children who attend summer camp actually are more likely to go to college versus their peers who don't go to camp. So I thought that was pretty cool when I was looking up that portion. The early childhood education, or the preschool, I should say, that you folks run, and the bus service that you have is very unique, that no other program has. I know that you guys partner with Wild Plum to make sure families who cannot pick up their kids at 4 o'clock can have their children bused and watched until 6 o'clock. At the end of the day, support preschools throughout St. Vrain. So I really want to thank you for your services there, because that's not available through St. Vrain transportation or anything like that. So I could totally see how that you know, really reflects and supports that academic standpoint, which is within the district. And I see that the district's supporting you folks as well. So that's really good to hear, because yeah, it's their students that you folks are helping. School-aged programs, again, you know, the scholarships that you guys provide, especially with the overnight camps for families who would never have this opportunity. I just really want to highlight that aspect of your programs, and I'm 100% on board with you guys and the funding that you're seeking. My only ask out of all that, so I know you have so many programs and so many wonderful things, and I was even listening to something Perry. He's the gentleman that wrote The Boy Who Was Raised by Wolves, and he's a childhood trauma specialist, I should say. And he was talking about how childhood trauma can have an impact on a kid as they grow up and start to go through school, and how those interactions and those connections of social and emotional are so important, because it helps them kind of regulate. And so with all of that being said, you know, you're serving a high population of probably low income families, providing tons of scholarship. And I just want to add, good for you for spending the money that you get on programs today versus saving it in some reserve for 10 years later, because the need is today, not tomorrow. And so I'm super excited just by that philosophy. Of course, agree with Aliberto. I'm happy that you guys do have some reserve just in case of an emergency. But my question for you is, since you serve so many children, so many low-income families, so many families that are facing, you know, children who have trauma or just, you know, social emotional learning or, you know, issues of the sorts, how do you stay on top of training your staff to make sure that they're working with these kids, you know, appropriately? And also, how are you taking care of your staff financially?
So just had a meeting literally this morning. I was in for our series of ongoing meetings with mental health partners. Cindy Cohagen is our contact at Mental Health Partners. She's arranged for us to have the Narcan drop boxes and all the Ys. That's what she's doing right now. But we count on them to train Lisa's staff in mental health first aid, suicide prevention, identification of mental health issues. And in fact, Mental Health Partners got a grant with the Y this past summer, and we embedded a therapist into our staff, where the staff would come running to them and say, okay, I got this kid doing this. How do I do? Okay, let me go run back and deal with it. And I think about 30% of her time was spent on staff issues with the young staff that were, you know, having their set of stuff. Lisa?
Yeah, Mental Health Partners has been an absolute win for us in so many levels. We do that trauma-informed care, mental health first aid. We're even doing resiliency with our teens and our teen program, and then our influencer and pro-social programs in Boulder. So we're extending all of that into Longmont even more. And, you know, one of the things Chris brought up with having that mental health service embedded in our program, they did support the staff, they did support the kids, but also supported our families and our parents, because we see those families come in and we know that those stressors can produce incredible trauma, lifelong trauma for children. And coming out of that, we all still talk about the pandemic because those pandemic babies are preschoolers now, and we're seeing it with them. So we do a lot of PIE nights, those parent information and education nights, and we bring in Child Health Connection and mental health partners to train the parents and support them as well. So it really, you know, like you mentioned, the Y serves children. We're getting ready to open infant care coming up in different markets. And so from infancy all the way up through those teens, we've got them. They're a captive audience for us. We make it easy for parents to just roll them from one program to another, and we can keep our eyes on those kids. We also have them year round. When school's out, we have them. Preschool, we have them year round. So we can keep our eyes on them. We can keep our eyes on the families. And we just have so many resources to reach out to because we're trusted. If we don't have the answer, we go find somebody that does, and we bring them in. And we are spending a lot of time and effort training and supporting our staff. You mentioned supporting our staff financially. Our ARPA money, that's what it went for. It went to not just increasing their wages, which childcare staff increased anywhere from $3 to $6, just depending on their position. So a massive increase for us. But we also we provided free childcare, and we're still doing that. So our staff, it helps us get and retain staff because they have a safe place for their child to be. They're not worrying about finding childcare, so they can bring their children to day camp all summer long, or they can bring their sibling to day camp all summer long. So we can hire that 20-year-old because then mom can send the 7-year-old with them. So it's been a win-win for us, for our staff. It's given us staff continuity and retention. It's been fantastic. And then Chris, you know, went to bat with our board and kept our staff whole on retirement and health insurance throughout the pandemic and ongoing. That hasn't been touched. And a lot of organizations, those were things that went away and haven't fully come back. And so I think we constantly make moves to take care of our staff.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So our time has been up for about 10 minutes.
Sorry. We're
so
so
do you have any closing statements you want to make? I'm not going to give you 5. I'll let you make a closing statement just because the next person's been waiting for a while.
Yeah, here's our closing statement. Thank you. Thanks for being an easy city to work with and a nice city to work with. We do not have this relationship with every community. It speaks well of Longmont.
All right. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. And our last person's in the waiting room from TLC. Hey, Matt. Thank you for your patience. It's been some great conversations tonight that have made us run a little bit late, so we appreciate your patience. So just some real quick housekeeping. As you know, this is a public meeting. It's being recorded. It will be available on the City of Longmont's YouTube page. I'm going to introduce the board real quick, give you a chance to introduce yourself, and then we're going to get going. You got 10 minutes of Q&A. Like I said, we've had some great conversations, may go over a little. But let me start with the board, and then we'll let you introduce yourself, and then we'll start the timer. So I'll start from my bottom. Crystal.
Good evening, Matt. My name is Crystal Prieto. I've been a board member. This is my first year. It's a pleasure to meet you.
All right, Alejandro.
Hello, good evening. My name is Alejandro Prieto, and I've been with the board this is my first year.
Graham.
Hi, Matt. I'm Graham, and it's my second term on the board.
Deanna.
Hi, Matt. I'm Deanna. This is my 4th year on the board. Thank you for being here.
Christina.
Hi, Matt. I'm a little under the weather, but you know me well. Christina Pacheco.
And you can't see her because she is off camera, but Brenda Palacio is our wizard who makes all of this happen. She coordinates the meetings and confirms with you all and make sure that we got the recording and all that going. All right, Matt, I'll let you introduce yourself and then I'll start the 10-minute timer for questions from the board.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Matt Eldred. I'm the Executive Director of TLC Learning Center. We're a 67-year-old nonprofit early childhood organization here in Longmont. You may know us as the Tiny Tim Learning Center. We've been TLC Learning Center for 10 years now. Our new name is now 10 years old. But as I was speaking to a Rotary Club yesterday, they said, "Aren't you Tiny Tim?" And we are. So TLC Learning Center, we serve children birth through age 12 for therapy services, occupational, physical, and speech therapy. And we have 9 classrooms of children 6 weeks to 6 years old in a child care setting. Some of those children with special needs are in those classrooms. And then we also see children in their home through a home health care license and a partnership with Imagine for what's called early intervention for children with disabilities birth to 3. We're a part of the Universal Preschool Program, which you may be familiar with, UPK. We're also a CCAP provider of child care assistance for children ages birth through 6. And yeah, I'm really excited tonight. Again, I just want to say thank you to the board for doing this. You guys, I saw your lineup of folks that you talked with tonight, and you've got a powerhouse of nonprofits that are serving Longmont and Boulder County. I serve currently as the president of the board of the Human Service Alliance, which is all of the human service agencies in Boulder County, and the secretary treasurer of the St. Vrain Community Council, which is all of the nonprofit organizations in the St. Vrain Valley region of Boulder County. So I know all of these folks well that you've spoken to tonight, and I can't say enough good things about them, but I'm excited to share with you tonight about TLC Learning Center and what we're doing and some of the exciting partnerships that are coming up both with the city of Longmont and with some of the other nonprofits that you've spoken with tonight.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Questions?
So let's go ahead and start with questions. I'll start the timer. Alejandro.
So first of all, thank you so much for the service. I do understand how challenging it is, especially to work with the mentally challenged and children on the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And so thank you so much for providing that service. I am very impressed with your staff diversity. So I'm very impressed with that. But then then I look at your board and I'm like, well, what are you all doing to diversify your board?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Alejandro. It's a challenge every year to find people to be on our board, in particular people of color and people of diverse cultures. One of the reasons that I think that is because a lot of the families that we serve have multiple jobs, have children, have a lot of responsibilities. We've tried to do a hybrid meeting with our board meetings, and because of that, we've been able to add 2 new board members. One of them is a current TLC parent, Josie Martinez, and I'm really excited to bring Josie on the board. She's a former board member of El Comité and Intercambio and comes with a lot of nonprofit experience. But mostly I'm excited because she's a parent at TLC Learning Center that is really reflective of the families that we serve. But certainly that's not enough. And we need more Josie Martinez on our board. And that's always constantly a challenge.
Thanks, Matt. Graham.
Hey, Matt, what was your satisfaction survey results last year?
We do 2 different satisfaction surveys. We do a survey for our parents who receive therapeutic services, and mostly it asks them how were their experience? Did they feel like they were getting their money's worth in terms of their billing, the supports? That has been 100% satisfaction. We've had 0 complaints, which we have to be in compliance with the state of Colorado on any complaints, in particular around HIPAA compliance or things like that. So that's an easy one. On the childcare side, we have a 90% satisfaction rate, and mostly that is due to our families who wish that we were open longer. We're open 7:30 to 5:30 Monday through Friday. However, we realize that the challenge for families goes well beyond 7:30 to 5:30 Monday through Friday, and that is a challenge that we're going to continue to look at in some of our partnerships that we look at moving forward in the future of being able to serve families when they need care. But that was the primary I want to say dissatisfaction, but it was one of the things that families said, we need more hours and we need extended care.
Got it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Deanna, and then Crystal.
So I noticed your application obviously talked about serving children with disabilities. Do you think that your organization provides more early childhood educational opportunities to children with disabilities than other early childhood educational facilities in Longmont? I don't know if that's a fair question. I'm just sort of trying to gauge what separates you from some of the other organizations.
Exactly. So I do think there are other programs in Longmont that are serving children with disabilities, and I think they're doing that to the best of their ability, and some of them are doing that very well. I think the distinct difference between TLC Learning Center and some of those other programs is we actually employ occupational, physical, and speech therapists. We have them on staff. They're embedded in our classrooms. They see children in what we call the least restrictive environment or in their natural setting. And we are actually the therapists for children in other high quality early childhood programs across Longmont. We're partnering with the Wild Plum Center. We have other, 3 and 4 star Colorado Shines rated programs that just don't have therapists on staff. And that we can do through our home healthcare license. We can actually see children in whatever is outside of our building is considered the home. So whether that's the park, a grocery store, another child care center, or a child's actually physical home. That's what really sets us apart, I think, from other childcare programs, is that we're able to provide those services on site in the classrooms with therapists. And the thing that I think mostly helps with that is not that the child gets those services in the least restrictive environment, but when a child gets that in the classroom, the teachers who are qualified teachers, they're not master's and doctorate level occupational speech and physical therapists, and they get to benefit from those therapists being in their classrooms and then using the skills that the therapists are doing in the circle time the rest of the day. And we call that teaming. We have an occupational, physical, and speech therapist assigned to every classroom, and 1 hour a week, the 3 therapists and the 2 teachers have an hour of planning time where they just talk about the makeup of the classroom. And it might be about an individual child, but it might be about relationships of children. Maybe it's a parent-child interaction that they want to work with a specific family on. So there's a lot of distinct things that are different when you're providing special services for children, when you've got the professionals beyond just the early childhood professionals, but the medical professionals as well. And we have that.
Thank you.
Crystal.
So I've always heard about your organization, but I never really dived into what exactly you guys do. And I can say, oh my goodness, am I impressed by the application and also just everything you just shared. You're truly a special organization, I have to say. My schooling is in human services with a concentration in high-risk youth, and I'm a resource navigator in my career. So I'm very familiar with the resources available in the community, and there is not one like yours. So I'm like, how was this gem under my nose and I didn't know about it? So I'm super excited that I learned more about your organization through this hearing, and that I'll get to tell others about it. My question for you is, the funding that you're requesting, what specifically are you requesting that funding for? Is it towards staff? Is it toward opening up, larger classrooms? What's your plan?
Right. No, we really like general operating as our best source of funding. However, I would say that our largest expense, as you'll see in our expenses, 80% of our expenses is payroll. We don't have enough workforce in early childhood, whether that's a qualified professional speech or occupational therapist or an early childhood teacher. And you've probably heard that tonight about workforce in several of the other presentations. We've got to do a better job of paying the workforce. And so the funding that we're asking for the city of Longmont, specifically for more early childhood professionals in the classrooms. We have low student teacher ratios, lower than what licensing allows. And we do that because we think that it's intentional that children need, not just children with special needs, but every child needs the personal touch, the interaction with a teacher that you can only get when you can actually have them sit on your lap, or you can actually sit at a table with them, rather than a 1-to-12 ratio, which is what our preschool license capacity is at the state level. No preschooler benefits from a classroom of 12 with one teacher around them, let alone a child with a disability. So the funding we're asking for specifically goes.
So we don't fund general operating, we fund programs. So it's good that you're getting program staff.
Say that again, Alberto.
I say it's good that you're getting program staff because we don't fund general operating, we fund programs.
Exactly. It's for programs for early childhood for our teachers.
Right. So that's great. That's exactly what this money's meant for.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Any other? Go ahead. Sorry, Crystal, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, that is fine. We don't have to use all our 10 minutes. What I'm going to do, I'm going to stop this clock. Got to get my timer here. And I'm going to set a 5-minute clock and let you share all the exciting things you want to share, Matt.
Well, I would love for Christina to be able to talk as well if you're okay speaking, Christina. But what I'm really excited about is the Early Childhood Hub project. And Crystal, exactly what you're talking about, the early childhood, the navigator. It's hard enough to figure out as a I think a somewhat middle class white 50-year-old male. I can navigate some things for my children, and I've struggled. It is impossible for families that have income barriers, language barriers to navigate anything close to what they need for their children. And so with this idea of an early childhood hub, it would be the idea of bringing several partners together around early childhood services, with TLC being the owner operator of it, but we would bring in programs like the Wild Plum Center, who provides Head Start, which you've met with tonight. Other FFN providers, our Friends, Family, Neighbor Care, you've met with the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition. There are a lot of other good FFN programs around the city of Longmont that we would love to partner with, and we need more of those families providing services for their children. But they need access to resources, and it's not just resources like books and materials. It's resources that we all need as early childhood professionals: first aid, CPR, safe sleep, sudden infant death syndrome trainings, etc. All of those things our FFN providers need just as much as our licensed providers, if not more. And so if we could provide those services in one kind of a one-stop shop, we're not going to be able to provide all things for a navigator, but if we could get 80% or 90% of those things, and especially for our families who need it most, which are the families who struggle with our families from at-risk populations around income, special needs, language. If we could provide those services in one place with several different partners, partnering with the city of Longmont to provide this, as well as the city of Longmont as child care for the city of Longmont employees, as well as maybe other businesses, that could also be housed in this facility. And so we actually had our pre-application meeting today with the city of Longmont. We've purchased 2.8 acres in southeast Longmont, which is where there's several housing projects happening. And we're really excited about being able to share and unveil some of this in the very near future. But Christina, do you want to say anything about that or anything I missed?
Well, I would just say that Amy did put a plug in for the hub when she talked about her projects. And Matt has talked about there being designated spots for City of Longmont employees, and that really is how the city plans to provide some early childhood opportunities for incoming employees, and use that as part of their benefit package to recruit employees to come and work for the city of Longmont. So that's how we're a partnership in this hub project as well. And the child care agencies that are based out of the hub will provide that child care.
Yeah, really exciting. Yeah, we just to give you a quick synopsis, right now we're saying this is about a $15 million project, and leveraging the current building that we have with the sale of that building, assuming we'll sell it for what we think it's worth, through City of Longmont, through some state funding, ARPA funding through the county. We've raised about 10.8 million of that 15 million, assuming that we can sell the building for what we think 2.7, 2.8 million, something like that. We're about 10.8 million toward a $15 million project to be able to open about a 32,000 square foot facility with, again, multiple agencies, and I think the ability to grow other resources for the city of Longmont around what is needed in early childhood. We actually are going to provide a summit in January to talk to specifically FFN providers about what are the gaps in services and things that you need to be able to do your jobs better in serving children in our community, because we know that not all children are in programs like Wild Plum and TLC Learning Center, the Hour Center, great childcare programs. But we know that more families are in FFN care than any other type of care, and they need to have the access to resources, training, professional development opportunities, just as much as our high quality programs benefit from. And if we can do that better together, kind of getting back to you, Alejandro, we're better reflective of our community when we're providing those resources and services to all. I am probably not the best provider of an FFN provider for a Latino family, but I know people who are. And if I could give them some of the resources that could benefit from some of the training that my staff get every day, it would help them do their job better as well.
All right, and we got about 4 seconds left. So thank you so much, Matt, for being here tonight and sharing about TLC and the work that you're doing in the community. It has been a wonderful night to learn about all sorts of early childhood education projects in our community. So have a great evening. I appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you all, and thank you again for serving on this board.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, folks, for the board, thank you so much. And yeah, Crystal, just checking with us, and we'll help you get those evaluations going, and we're good to go.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hard one, man. This is
Yeah,
awesome.
like I'm like I want to